Association has been an invaluable resource for me. As I mentioned, I'm not a one-man show, and I feel that they're my partner. I can go onto the website. Rental U has resources for training my employees and myself. During 2020, there was so much support.
Welcome to Peer Talk, a dialogue with business owners just like you. Peer Talk conversations run the gamut of business challenges facing owners today. The host of Peer Talk is Dan Crowley, founder and owner of Peer Executive Groups, which provides a safe space for owners to share their experience, grow their businesses, and learn from their peers.
Hi, this is Dan Crowley. We have a number of great business owners in our Peer Executive Group network, and our job is to give them a voice. Welcome to Peer Talk.
360 Payments is a proud sponsor of Peer Talk. We make payments simple, secure, and cost-effective for your business. Our team is experts in the rental industry and have a goal of making payments an afterthought so you can focus on what's most important, your customers, employees, and families. Drop us a line at 360payments.com/PEG for Peer Executive Group, and we will be happy to give you a complimentary review of your current processing situation to see how we can help.
Welcome to Peer Talk. Our guest today is Michelle Nelson from MK Equipment Rentals. Michelle got her start after high school by going to the University of Southern California. There she proceeded to get a bachelor's in urban planning and moved on to her master's. She did work for the city of Los Angeles and Seattle, as well as private engineering firm, before her father connected with her and said, hey, maybe you should take a look at the business. And so she made her way back to Honolulu, Oahu, where MK Equipment Rentals is located. Welcome to another edition of Peer Talk. This is Dan Crowley, and I have Michelle Nelson with me from MK Equipment from Oahu, right? Are you in Honolulu, Michelle?
Yes, so we're on the island of Oahu in Honolulu. That's the name of our city.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad to have you here. This is a special one for me because I know that you've been in peer groups for a while, almost gonna hit, year and a half mark, but you've always committed yourself to systems and different things you can help your business and help you improve your business. And whether you're learning from your peers or learning from other consultants or business process systems, consulting, you seem to be pretty into that. So I was hoping we could talk about that today.
Sure.
Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about we heard in the intro that, you came from, Southern University of Southern California, and you really had a planning background. You weren't in rental to begin with. You went, obviously advanced degree, but then you come back over to Oahu. Tell us about how that happened and how you came back into the picture. And while you're doing that, please take a moment and tell us about the history of MK.
Sure. So MK actually stands for Marvin Kurisu. That's my dad. And back in the 60s, he started a repair service, repairing construction equipment, and then later on went to rent equipment as well. He decided to incorporate the business with my grandfather, who had a little more capital, and MK Equipment was born in 1973. So he did a great job growing the business through the 80s and the 90s, wherever there was need, construction booms here and there. And in 2005, his partner got sick and had to leave. So there were other family issues at the time. He stopped growing the business between 2005 and 2013. So he was just scaling back. He wanted to retire, didn't know what to do. So he was at a point where he wasn't really sure what was going on. And it was about that time when I was in my career. So I have a 20-year career in the field of planning and development.
Wow.
But a casual remark by one of my mentors suggested that maybe I seriously think about working for my dad, and it came out of the blue. And within that same week, my dad casually asked me, hey, you ever thought about coming to work for me? And I just thought maybe it was meant to be. I had worked for him one summer. I hated it. I had to chip mud off of the tractors. And I said, no, like, there's no, I'm not going to do that. And, that was that time in my life. And in 2015, I made the choice to leave my career and I joined my dad in what I thought was going to be this great partnership, right?
Yeah, of course. It's, you have it in your head how it's going to turn out, but then you get there and it's a little different. So you come in, it was probably in the springtime, if I recall, and you going into the summer months. What was your first year like? What were some of the things that you had to like, re-engage and understand about the business that you remembered from when you were there before?
Wow, I remembered nothing from when I was there before, except that being in the hot sun, chipping mud, that wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So there were a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
My dad and I were so alike. We irritated each other. He wasn't used to working with me. I wasn't used to working with him. And for processes, he was a one-man show. He was great at it. I mean, he
Wow.
was the man. He could do it all. My dad could repair
Yeah.
equipment and just know what was wrong, right? I didn't have any of that.
Hmm.
So I had to find my own strengths and focus on those
Wow.
and really see where I could fit, first of all, in the organizational structure, and then planning for when my dad was going to step out, how to
Hmm.
build a team around me with various skills that I didn't have.
So when an owner brings in either, progeny, next generation, or a key employee, they usually tend to complement themselves. They identify kind of a weak spot for themselves, and then they prop that area up with the person. Did something like that happen for you? Were you like involved in marketing first or anything like that?
I want to say my dad, because he was a one man show, he didn't know how then to turn things over. And
Mm,
that's where my skill sets were in setting up processes, organization, communication, and using technology. So
gotcha.
it was like the Stone Age when I started. So I told him, okay, that's fine for you. That's how he did it. And obviously he did all the right things. But in order for me to step in, I needed to move on to like the industrial age, the information age. So it was a bit overwhelming.
Mm. Wow. And so then, so 2015, 16, 17, 18. Now, what point does he like stop coming into work as much or, at least let you have a little bit of freedom to make some failure on your own, if you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I have to say, when COVID hit, he finally decided not to be around anymore.
Oh, wow.
But he was down to like a day or two a month for, I
Wow.
want to say, the last 4 years. I mean,
Mm,
I came, he saw that I could handle things and then
mm.
decided he'd rather do other things.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, that makes some sense. And then in give us a picture of what the business looks like. So it's 2020. This is last year before COVID hit. What was the peak that you had in terms of employees and your challenge? So what was the employee count like back then?
So we have managed to have a pretty stable employee count. Not too many people leave. We did have one
Mm,
person retire during COVID. She was
gotcha.
older and just decided to retire. And then another employee, he decided to go into a totally different type of job. But
Hmm.
for the most part, we were able to, I don't want to say replace because you can't replace a person, but we found someone else who can do the things that they were doing.
Oh, okay, excellent. And so head count, what's your number that you're at size wise?
About 13.
13. Okay, excellent. And you're so are you in the heart of the industrial section of Honolulu or where are you located?
So we are in Honolulu, and there
All right.
is a large industrial section here. There's also another section in another part of the island, and I'm not sure which one is actually larger. We're the older section.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, and I had been to Honolulu before and worked as a consultant in that market. I think you know who I'm talking about. When I came in to kind of be a controller consultant to help with setting up the books for a mutual friend of ours. But the so I wasn't sure if you were in that specific area, because that was very much industrial warehouse and set up in such a manner. There were so many businesses in that specific little area. But okay, so you're might be further away in the other one than the older section. Okay.
We're in the older section, so it's a mix of residential and industrial
Oh, okay. Got
and
it. Got it.
commercial.
And then when you started to do all things related to the business, what did you see as your immediate strengths, and then the ones that you knew you were going to have to work on, be challenged by?
One of my strengths was really organization and
Hmm.
developing systems. So
Gotcha.
we could work together, we meaning myself and the other employees, and really working to develop leaders
Hmm.
who could really take ownership of certain areas, for example, repairs and employee management.
Okay.
So we could work together. I'm not the one man show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And then you feeling pretty good about the leadership, the systems building, business management. Tell us a little bit about your growth in the last couple of years, the tools, the services. I know that you joined the peer groups. What are some of the success stories or some of the things you've enjoyed about your development the last couple of years?
Well, I know for a huge fact that the American Rental Association has been an invaluable resource for me. As I mentioned, I'm not a one man show, and I feel that they're my partner. I can
Mhm.
go onto the website. Rental U has resources for training my employees and myself. During 2020, there was so much support
That's
through,
excellent.
yes, through ARA. They had a Facebook page. I learned how to use Facebook. It was great. But really going back, I mean, the ARA show, my first one was in Atlanta, and
Hmm.
that was amazing. It's so much to look at, so much to learn, and being able to meet the manufacturers, touch and feel the equipment,
Yeah.
and meeting the other owners was great. I mean, that's how I heard about you, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
right, through the ARA show.
And the thing about the ARA is they continue to evolve and develop. And not a couple months goes by where they already are moving towards another angle for supporting their association, their members. And that the recent move, I know Josh Nickel came on to be a liaison for the equipment rental side, and just his ability to connect dots and work with some of the members has been pretty neat. And of course, they had some things in the works before COVID. They are continuing to push through those and get those in place, whether it be women in rental initiatives or some of the technology showcases that I know they've got planned. So we're looking forward to the show in October. The ARA show, as you had mentioned, is obviously um, the ground zero for great business ideas to help with the equipment rental industry. So it should be good. Now you're in a group with a couple of other members who we've already interviewed, actually recently, Alberto and I believe Dave's in your group, right? Dave Dworshak. Now your
Yes,
group you're meeting in the spring, and I believe you're meeting down in Texas, correct?
yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. And so you have so part of what they have been doing in that group is really focusing on growth and rate of change of sales of the business. And I know that was one of the initial tools that you started using when you got into peer groups. Tell us a little bit about how your group communicates using that.
Communicates using rate of change.
Yeah. So you look at that monthly, I guess, regularly. And from that perspective,
Yes,
okay, got it. And then, so, basically you're just sharing what the rate of your growth is with the others on the group.
Yes, so we go month by month and
Mhm.
we will post our numbers, but I think more importantly, a lot of times there's the little comments like, hey, this was a great month, or man, I don't know what happened this month. And it really helps to see not just seasonally, but during COVID and during other things that are going on with the market and in our different regions or areas. It's nice to have a handle on what in general things are like. So I could be having a bad month, but other
Mhm.
people are having a great month, and so I know, okay, at least overall this is okay. We're okay.
No, that's great. And again, for us, even seeing you post that information, even some of the facilitators and the leadership team inside peer groups, we have the ability to kind of reach out to you and communicate also. And it helps us to understand, some of the other organizations, not necessarily your organization, but other organizations that might be struggling with generating sales and helping them to identify ways to grow the business. You had taken one of our partners on for initiatives inside your organization. David Olson, who we had on this program back in the fall. He had implemented software called Core Value into an organization called Atlantic Lift Systems. And I guess the basics of it, and then I'll let you kind of tell us about how that relationship came about. The basics of it was that you do an assessment of your business, identify the value, and then you work at the different dimensions of the business to improve the value, correct? Something like that?
Yes, yes. So, just how I got involved with that, our Region 9 director back when I started out was Tom Hughes, and he was the one. So I developed a relationship with him over the years, and he was the one who called me up one day and said, hey, I've learned about this peer executive groups, and it's great. You get to meet with other business owners, and it seemed to be the missing piece to the growth that I was looking for, to that path towards growth. So of course I joined in 2019, and Dan, you hooked me up with an amazing group. We had our first group meeting in October of 2020 because COVID hit right after I joined,
Oh, that's right.
and it was a great experience just to have all those brains in one room. And right after I got home from that, I attended that webinar with David Olson,
Oh, okay.
and
I was
he
wondering
went
how that
over.
came up. Yeah.
Right. So he went over core values, and I liked what I saw, but it was so new to me. I actually did call Alan at Atlantic Lives, and
Oh,
he
wow.
gave me some great insight. He opened my eyes to the possibilities, but also said that working with David was great. And I signed up. And I know I talked it over with you, Dan, too, and we felt good about it. And I'm really glad I did that because it showed me what I knew I didn't know, but I didn't know how to know.
Yeah. Totally know what you're
And
saying.
right, if that makes sense, right? David points me in the right direction so I don't get overwhelmed. So I think it was a great combination of not just the software and having that information, but also with David who helps me to process all of it.
Yeah, they and I forget what they call so there's software that comes with it and you track inside the software, but what are the items called across the top? There's like 16 of them, or
They're called drivers.
drivers, that's it. Value drivers. Thank you very much for reminding me of that. Um, so the value drivers, I find they are, first off, it's good to have them and know them, because no matter what the cost of the consulting or the services of the software might be, once you know it, you can't unknow it, right? So the next 5 years,
Right.
10 years, you're going to be really focusing on these value drivers. And, it's an amazing thought, because I understand, my background is business. So obviously I understand like the five pillars of business, which are, hey, strategy first, then you communicate the strategy through your sales and marketing. Then you've got your financial controls and reporting that have to do with how do I make it profitable, what I'm doing. And then from there you have your people strategy, which is now, how do I manage accountabilities and how do I grow the staffing that's needed. And then the last pillar is really focused around operations and systems, and effectively implementing improvements in those systems, continuing to drive the other pieces, right? So the whole thing makes sense to me. But my problem was knowing those five things is great, but you don't really know. Like you say, sales and marketing. So what? What does that mean? But like with you, with those value drivers, you now you're talking about understanding your large market potential, right? Stuff like that, I guess.
Yes.
And what are some of the, awakening? What are some of the different drivers that kind of were like, oh, that's a good one. I never thought of that. That's a good point.
Well, I think when I saw the drivers, I thought, okay, they make sense. I mean, I do have a little bit of business background just from university, so it made sense. But I think when you talk about being having your eyes open,
Yeah.
it's really how to map all of these areas, right? So I think about core values as this tool. It's like a mirror. It shows me a map of all of the areas that I have going on in my business. So it's like this jungle, and yeah, I have sales here, I have operations and financials and all of those pieces, and there's no clear path. So then it's about
Yeah.
looking at, okay, how am I doing in all those areas? And then the path starts to come about, right? When you start to connect the dots, well, I need to grow. So growth is an area, but before I can grow, I really need to work on my sales and marketing. And so all of the drivers, they work together, and core values puts them in priorities, helps you to prioritize
Oh,
which
wow.
ones would be great to work on first, and you can work on them in any order, so it doesn't hold you to just the priorities they suggest, but it really helps.
Well, and I've known David for a long time, and this is obviously software that he licenses, I guess. But the way I looked at it was, we had all caught like this traction bug, right? We want to do traction, we want to do EOS implementation, and I thought EOS is great. There's nothing wrong with EOS. EOS is a critical component of how I run my business. But I always was concerned, like, am I looking at everything? And do I have a full, extensive picture of all the value drivers in my company? And I'll be honest with you, I didn't like my big rocks inside EOS didn't necessarily focus on making sure that all these elements were being done properly and in the right order, because at the end of the day you need to be aware of that. So the idea of this being a reflection for you in a mirror, it's that's a great way to represent it. I never even heard that before, so thank you for that one.
Well,
So
and you mentioned EOS, and EOS is totally different. And I've been
yeah.
sitting in on the book club meetings, and those book club meetings have been awesome. In fact, I have been able to tie in so much of what I'm learning through that EOS Traction Book Club into where David tells me I should be focusing on in core values. For example, that accountability chart. I mean, the basic things about just having the right people in the right seats.
Hmm.
I needed that before I could get started on almost anything else. So thankfully, we have that going.
Oh, that's great. So you're basically you're using both programs in sync with each other. That's ideal.
Yeah, I think it's like EOS Lite. And that was one
Mhm.
thing I had talked to Andrew Hisacker about when I was looking at traction. And he shared with me like the real strengths of it and how he loved it. And I said, wow, I'm not there yet, but it doesn't hurt to start some pieces of it right now.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that's what I did. I used EOS for a number of months before actually was using one of our employees, Phil Morera, as the integrator. And I was the visionary on it, right? And we're doing it from that perspective. But the nice thing is it's practice, practice, practice. So if you're doing an L10 meeting or you're starting to get into this habit of saying, this is an issue, it's not a to do, this is a now this issue is going to go into being a big rock and we're going to implement it. But the cool thing is if you think about what you're getting out of core value, it's helping to form those big rocks. It's helping to identify what
Yes.
can I do this year. You're not going to overwhelm yourself, but you certainly can prioritize and know what you would like to work on.
Yes, and so the great thing about having David to help me through that process is that I said it was this big jungle with a
Yeah.
map of just my whole business. So David like gave me the machete, and he's
Hmm.
like, okay, like whack over here. Like we need to get through here. We need to start connecting, and these are how these drivers work together. And he knows where I want to be, and is helping me to develop a plan how to get there.
What's cool about both core value and EOS is, in my mind, you do graduate from your coaches. Like these are, especially core values got the software right. You can, I guess you can keep the subscription going after you've ended the relationship. And you obviously where to reach people if you need them. But at the end of the day, um, you've got these phenomenal tools in your arsenal, and it's just keeps helping you as you uncover other business dilemmas, right? Especially with growth. So as you add,
Right.
what's the next job? What I always say, what's the next position you're going to add in your business, right? That's always a tough one to keep track of.
Right. And so, I mean, by the end of this year, actually, by the end of June, my goal is to have a sales rep. And that's something we've never had before. And that's something that came up during this core values
Oh,
assessment.
that's right. I heard that. That's great. I think that's outstanding. I mean, considering your volume, you definitely have to move that path down that path. And I think, the good news is you're not going into it blind, because you can kind of you must have some essence of like, okay, what kind of metric am I going to measure that person's success on, right? So you'll start to develop that.
Right. So we're developing that right now.
Oh, cool. So that's great. So that'll help with your growth and all the other value drivers that are around growth. Now, what about how did you take when you went through what about like differentiation? I always find that to be one of the most challenging things. Like what makes you different from your other competitors in your market?
So, depending on the industry, there can be a lot of ways to differentiate yourself. And
Hmm.
we were able to establish that some of them are more soft. So, whereas
Hmm.
you might have product differentiation when you've got fast food, right? That's very distinct. You need to separate yourself. So, someone's chicken sandwich is the best for these reasons. But for my business, we looked at customer service.
Hmm.
For us, our customer service has to be on point. That is what brings and keeps our customers who are in a hurry. They need to get their jobs done, and so that needs to remain a focus. So even as I think about growing, I have to make sure that we don't start uh, reducing the amount of customer
Hmm.
service we can give to every customer. So that was something that came up during differentiation. But again, it's soft. So even when
Hmm.
we go through the core values assessment, my score is very low because it's
Got it.
not a lot of pinpointing specific things that we can do, or having trademarks and those kinds of legal things. So
Yeah.
the great part about having a coach to develop or to go through the assessment is that sometimes I look at a low score and I think it's bad because I'm so used to looking at different scores and okay, higher
Yeah.
score is good. But in this sense, the lower score just means that it's probably not that big of an issue to deal with at
Yeah.
some point.
Got it. Oh, interesting. That's good to know. I mean, that's something I didn't know prior to this call, so that's good to know on the actual system. I didn't know it because I know it's a very metric driven system, and it really can
Yes.
help you to get a beat on where you're going. It sounds like your focus in the next few months is going to be to get that outside sales developed. Also, you've made comments about you're managing your leadership team or leading your leadership team. So tell me about that. How has that changed? And have you talked to anybody inside your company about EOS or any of that yet?
So I've been having level 10 meeting or L10 meetings light, I call it.
Got it.
So we have L10 meetings using the agenda in EOS because I felt that that was something I could bring in and say, hey, this isn't my idea. This is what works in other
Oh,
companies. So let's
cool.
bring this in and let's see if we can state a task. And what I found is, aside from not having rocks together,
Hmm.
we can pretty much hit on all of the items and have a staff meeting, have a real productive meeting where we talk about important things, and it's not just me talking anymore.
Gotcha. Oh, wow. Awesome. So that leads into my next question, which is, what do you consider success? And I'm going to guess it's that you're developing people to think like owners, right? Is that what it is? Or
Well, that's one of the things I'm working on. But
yeah.
I have this quote that I think it's Winston Churchill. He said
Mhm.
that success is stumbling from failure to failure with no
Huh.
loss of enthusiasm, and that's me.
Nice. I like that. That's absolutely true. I'm going to definitely have to Google that afterwards and get a little printout for my wall here. That'll be awesome. So you're okay. So I'm gonna we gotta roll this up or get this done. So let's finish up here. What's your focus? Where do you see yourself 3 years from now? I know that's a loaded question, but I know with EOS that's something that we have to think about. So what's your business look like in 3 years?
I think in 3 years, I'll be in the middle of a strategic plan that will
Mhm.
have developed and really refining operational targets and metrics, having a
Gotcha.
sales rep, having some other things going on.
Excellent. Very cool. And you've got so I'm sure your plan is to keep growing the business in the next few years to get to that level and maybe have a couple more employees on board. So that'll definitely take a little bit of pressure off your shoulders. Um
Yes.
but excellent. Well, we really appreciate having you on today. Thanks for joining us on Peer Talk, Michelle.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is great.
360 Payments is a proud sponsor of Peer Talk. We make payments simple, secure, and cost-effective for your business. Our team is experts in the rental industry and have a goal of making payments an afterthought so you can focus on what's most important, your customers, employees, and families. Drop us a line at 360payments.com/PEG for Peer Executive Group, and we will be happy to give you a complimentary review of your current processing situation to see how we can help.
You've been listening to Peer Talk from Peer Executive Groups, produced and directed by Noah Crowley and hosted by Dan Crowley. Subscribe to this podcast for notifications of future episodes of Peer Talk.